Hello, today is finally Friday the 8th of November, and what a week it has been. It's really kind of been the biggest macro week of the year. Not just the US elections, but 5 of the biggest 10 central banks have made decisions this week. Rate cuts continue. But it's clear after what's happened and so many, before this week, 50% of the world's governments that are democracies were having elections this year. And it's clear that across the board, from right to left or left to right, there is big change coming. And certainly that's true in the United States. We've just had the Fed. I don't know how important the Fed are at the moment, rather for interest rates going forward, rather than what's going on, to be honest, with the elections and what I'm watching at the moment. Let me find, this is what I'm watching at the moment, because this, I think, is going to be more important for whether we interest rates and whether we have a bit of a recession or not. And this is the House election results, which are not all in yet. This is not decided. And what the market is a little bit worried about in the United States is a bit of a red sweep, which is where clearly the president elections decided, the Senate has decided, that's been won by the Republicans. And it's super close here in the House of Representatives. And it would be considered a red sweep if this also went to a Republican majority. What we also need to realise is that a lot of market professionals think that this would be quite inflationary because there would be kind of no check or balance on what Trump wants to do, and that potentially could be inflationary. There's a lot of things he wants to do, that point that way. And so I'm watching this race pretty closely. This is just the Google result. It's pretty cool because it's interactive. You need 218 seats for a majority. The GOP, the Republicans, are on 211. The Democrats are on 199. And so I'm watching this come in. You can put your mouse over the ones that haven't come in yet and see how many are up for grabs. And so I think that this could be actually quite a market mover, and that's one that I'm watching at the moment. That will affect bonds and that will affect the dollar. But I also think that if the Republicans win and it's quite inflationary, it could also mean that, any chance of a recession coming, which has been the big fear up to now, is kind of postponed. And a bit of inflation coming back means everything runs hot and there isn't going to be an immediate recession. So that's just a chart I'm watching at the moment. So let's go to the regular charts. This is after a really big week, we have got a 3-day holiday weekend coming for quite a lot of markets. On Monday, it's Veterans Day in the United States. It's Remembrance Day in Canada. It's a French bank holiday for Armistice Day and to be honest, for the rest of the Europe, markets are open, but I do think that they will be quite subdued with those other holidays. And quite often when you have, especially after a really big moving week, we could see some profit taking, if not today. And quite often around a 3-day weekend, you'll see a little bit of reversal, if not before, then afterwards. So just watch out for that, and watch out for a quiet start to the week next week, which should be, in terms of macro news, much quieter at least than this week. The other thing to watch with Trump, and this is going to be quite a shock to people who don't remember or who weren't trading the last time Trump was president, and he was really active on Twitter. He liked it because he could talk directly to the people, and he sometimes made typos and kerfuffles and whatever. And all of those people who swore that, when Elon bought Twitter and left and went to Threads or Facebook, are going to have to come back if they want to stay on top of what he's doing, because I do think that he'll come back to Twitter pretty strongly because he really enjoyed it. And so that's quite amusing to me as well. There you go. But that does move the market. The other thing we need to watch is, politicians make a huge number of promises when they want to get elected. And I think who Trump chooses, as he prepares to enter office, which is not, of course, until the 20th of January, but as he prepares, the people that he announced will give us a much clearer indication about how serious he is about the things he wants to do, particularly with respect to crypto markets. So, there are lots of announcements coming that can move the market, and we need to watch out for them. Okay, so let's talk about Bitcoin and this lovely breakout that we had. Remember, there was a little bit of a chance because this is a weekly chart of Bitcoin. In crypto markets, they love to, especially Bitcoin, it loves to make kind of retests of highs or swing failure patterns, which is where you make a high on a slightly higher high or a slightly lower low, and then reverse. Clearly, if we end up Sunday closing and holding above 73,500 zone, this is not a false breakout, and we are going to continue to push higher. And I have to say, at the moment, it's looking really good, but we've got to get through today and potentially some profit taking. I don't see it at the moment, and that's really good news for charts like Solana, which is very similar to Bitcoin but hasn't quite broken out yet. So I do still see us in a really strong uptrend in Bitcoin and looking really good. Just watch out for a little bit of a wobble though, and now in the next 3 days, just because of the holiday. And short term, if we look at I'm a big fan of these hourly moving averages, as you know. I really like them for entries and exits. I love them when they bunch up together like we did here, because we get a clear exit signal and we ride the hourly moving averages lower, and then when we get above them, we're riding them higher, and we're still riding them higher at the moment. And so, until we start losing this hourly 50 or something, or this previous swing low, no reason to worry about a bigger pullback yet in Bitcoin. Let's take a look at ETH though, which is a little bit more underperforming. And if we take a look at ETH against the dollar, we have to say, whichever way you look at it, here we are. It's looking pretty bullish. We're holding these monthly moving averages pretty nicely. And if we look at the weekly, here we are riding this weekly 200 moving average pretty nicely. But there's no doubt about it, we are clearly underperforming Bitcoin. And whenever I see a move like this, the one thing I always worry about, especially here we are, this weekly 50 moving average, which is the one thing that we've got to really hold above if we're going to keep going higher. This was really tough resistance when we tried it in August, and it was really tough resistance until we could get above it in February 2023. It's just one of those kind of weekly moving averages. The other thing that I'm always nervous about when I see a rally like this is it ends up just being a corrective measured move. And so if we look at this on the daily, from the low that we made on the 5th of August, which is pretty much where everything made a low, and I measure from this low to high, you can see that we're kind of sideways at an equal measured move level daily 200 moving average here. I'm not quite lining up, there we go. 2,913. So whilst 3,000 look pretty, bang on and a really good target, there is a lot of resistance here, not just in terms of this equal measured move, not just in terms of the daily 200 moving average, but if I look at the swing lows, from these swing lows here, let's line them up on the kind of closes around, there is a lot of support and resistance around this 2,900 level. So I keep trying to buy Bitcoin, Ethereum, hoping that it's going to start outperforming. And I've been doing that, but I'm watching this pretty closely, because if it starts looking like it's going to reverse here, I'm going to take some profit, get out of the way of the weekend, and see how we shape up after that. So just watch out for a bigger reversal. Again, if we watch our hourly moving averages here in ETH, nothing to worry about. We're still trending higher, but it's just in the kind of area of where we might get a bit of a reversal in ETH. So let's talk about Solana, which has really outperformed, and which I think could follow Bitcoin higher to new highs above new highs for 2024. In terms of Solana, obviously it's not going to be new all-time highs because we've got those big 2021 highs. Now, one of the reasons why, if we could draw this as a little bullish flag, couldn't we? We could say, in fact, let's draw it like this. Here's our little flag. This is a really nice breakout. I always think when you get a breakout from a flag like this, there's always that little risky area that it might just end up being a double top, double bottom, when we don't get above these previous highs in Solana. But one of the reasons why I think it might keep going, I'd always had $100 as a pullback level for this, and it didn't quite get to it. So I'm always a little bit skeptical, and we're still in that little tricky zone. Unlike Bitcoin, we're not quite at new highs yet. But there's a couple of reasons why I think Solana against the dollar has bottomed, and we're going to continue to see those new highs. As you know, I think that we've done 5 waves. We're doing 5 waves up. So if we measure from the low, December 2022, I see this as a wave 1, 2, and then 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 for a big wave 3, 3 waves back for wave 4, and I think we're beginning a big wave 5, which in crypto, wave 5s can really extend quite a long way. So I'm pretty bullish, Solana, that this is just beginning. But and once we get out of this trickier area, we could continue to outperform. One of the reasons that I think this wave 4 is finished and we are on our way higher, not just the lovely price action, which has looked really strong, but if I measure how long this wave 2 took from this low to high, you know, I'm a big fan of this waves 2 and wave 4 are very often equal in, if not in price, in time. So one of the two. And so if we measure this in time from this high that we made here, in fact it was that first high, then we can see, in fact let's line it up, we can see that at this low that we made on the 5th of August, this wave 2 and this wave 4 were exactly equal for Solana. So that kind of adds weight to this being over, and we are on our way up again and looking for pullbacks. So if we have a little bit of a wobble here, as you know, when we get a big thrust move like this, I'm always a big fan of 50% back of the open close being support and resistance. Back underneath it would mean a bigger pullback for Solana. But if we were to get a pullback here over this holiday weekend, halfway back of where we close on Sunday would be where I would be looking back to continue higher, or if I wanted to buy some more. So I like this in Solana, and that's what I'm looking at. And as long as we keep riding these hourly moving averages, still going higher, but just because of the 3-day holiday weekend, just watch out for some profit taking in this one. My favorite chart to look at here is this Solana against ETH, which has been amazing. And let's go to the weekly of Solana against ETH, and you can see this really is outperforming ETH. Here we are at new highs in this one. And again, when I'm not sure what's going on, again, we are trading a little bit sideways, and I do think this one's going to continue higher. If I look at this on the hourly, whenever you lose the hourly moving averages, you look back to the 200 moving average. If we continue with this correction and we get underneath it, if in other words, if ETH continues to outperform, then back underneath it, back above this hourly 200 moving average, for me is a really good sign of a bullish trend. If we look back, you know, we can see this quite regularly, and this 200 moving average for me on the hourly is the king of the chart as well. So we are in a little bit of a sideways correction. ETH has been doing a little bit of a catch up, but this, you know, in terms of where we are, I don't see any reason why this doesn't continue. And when I kind of look at fib levels, maybe fib projections, one of my favorite ways, I'll put it on the correction like this, high to low. Let's put in some more levels. 1.13, 1272, 1.618. So we have stopped at this 1272 extension here, a 0.071. If we continue and hold above 0.071, Solana should continue to outperform ETH, and then next fib target for me is 0.089. So this is just sideways in an uptrend for now, and I don't see this reversing. In other words, ETH outperforming Solana yet until that changes, or we start rolling over into a bigger downtrend in this chart. Okay, the next chart that we are going to look at is some hot ones this week and some requests. First one is peanut. Peanut, and I've written down 50% rule. So let's talk about what that means, right? So I markets quite often make 50% retraces, and when they do, they can tend to keep making 50% retraces until they break out of that pattern. So for example, in each of these swings here, we saw 50% retraces. This swing here, low to high, this was a 50% retrace. We rallied 50% and then we couldn't sustain it and we continued lower. And we're now doing this on a kind of bigger frame. So if I measure from this low to high here, you can see we've bounced from this 50% level at 0.094 in peanut, which means we're looking for the resistance of the 50% level going the other way. Let me take all these other levels off to make it a little bit easier to see. So this 50% level here is our resistance at the moment. If we do a bigger pullback here, if we're going to keep going higher, we're going to look for this to pull back 50% the other way until this pattern breaks, right? So that means that 0.11 here in peanut is important support. If we break underneath it, likely we've just bounced 50% and we are at risk of another leg lower. So if you're looking at this, wondering if it's going to keep going, 0.11 needs to hold a support, and we need to break these highs to break out of this 50% pattern. So peanut at the moment, watch out that this doesn't turn into a bigger correction. It's had a really good run, but it's going to be a little bit quieter over the weekend. And so I would say back underneath 0.11, we are at risk of a bigger pullback in this one, and I would get out of the way. And if we could hold and close and continue higher above 50% from this high to low, which is 0.124 or 0.125 really, then we are next swing higher, and this lovely three-wave correction is over in peanut. So Mudang is another request. This has had a lovely breakout. So the breakout that we were looking for, we had this, so we were looking at this from the highs here. So we had the breakout from this consolidation, and then we had a kind of a little bit of a wobble level here. If we drew it from here, potentially third touch of this trend line, we've broken out from that. In fact, everything we draw, we keep breaking up. And where do I get my targets from? Well, my targets, let's take this off, come from this first lovely 5-wave swing off the lows here. So I measured, use the measure tool, and I measure from this low to this high, and I project it from here. My first target then was a retest of these highs, and the 61.8 level here at 0.26, we've blasted through it. So my next upside target becomes the equal measured move from this low to this high, projected from here, and it's at 0.34. And if we continue above this and we push to new highs in Mudang, then I'm going to look for this 0.272 of the first swing, which is at 0.396, and then 1.618 of the first swing, which is very common for a big wave 3, would be my first real target at 0.468. We could even get to the 2.618, which is all the way up here. But we're going to go level to level to level with this one, and so that's how I've got my targets. And we could basically say, well, it's a retest of this high and then a retest of this high, but those are the target levels. So holding above these highs here, I think we continue higher in Mudang to 0.34 next. Again, if we look at my favorite hourly moving averages, we've had this bullish cross here, and we've been riding them ever since. And as long as we do keep riding that hourly 20 moving average, I don't see any reason for that to change until we get to that 0.34 level and hopefully push through it. So Mudang still going higher by pullbacks, especially those lovely hourly moving averages. There is one that I'm taking profit in at the moment, and that's Retardio. And here's the reason. So Retardio looks a little, let's put regular candles on, looks a little bit like Mudeng. Very nice. Pullback, consolidation, broke higher, blasted through the 61.8, made a new high, and so on. Kept going higher. We could, let's hide this for a second. We could look at these fib targets from this correction here. And we had a pullback at the 1272. We've made it to the 1.618. But one of the reasons why I am taking profit here in this one is it kind of looks like potentially we've made 5 waves up. One of the things that I look at, apart from that 1.618 level, is from this low to high. I look for wave 1 and wave 5 to be equal or have a relationship. And that gave me a target here also at this 1.618 extension level at 0.23 in Retardio. Now, do I think that this means it's over for Retardio and it's not going to ever make a new high or continue higher from here? Absolutely not. It's just, you know, if you don't pay yourself at profit targets, it's much harder when it's all rolling over and deciding whether to stay on or not. You know, you need to pay yourself. And if it has a really nice pullback to a really good support level, for me in this Retardio, holding this 0.17 level on a pullback and these previous highs would be a really nice, if it does and makes a base, would be a really nice long entry for another leg. But for me, it's just at one of those levels, and this little price action here on the daily is looking a little bit. The other reason, remember I talked about how I always like to see it riding the moving averages higher, and as soon as we lose them, we're in line for a bigger pullback. For example, here with these hourly moving averages, the hourly moving averages I've got are the 20 and the 50, and we just dropped underneath this 50, and we are therefore, for me, at risk of a bigger pullback to this 200 moving average, which is where you kind of tend to go if you lose them. 100 first and then the 200, which again points to 0.17 being an ideal pullback support level. So I really liked Retardio. I was long it, and this is why I am getting out and taking some profit ahead of the weekend. And mainly, you know, big level hourly moving averages have flipped and reversed. So got one more request here for, let me see, just come in, SCF. Let's see what's going on with this one. Oh, smoked chicken fam. Here we go. Now, when I look at this on a weekly, this is a pretty tough chart, isn't it? And when I look at these down on the daily, it's pretty clear that we are struggling to get above this daily 50 moving average, which ever since it came into being on this chart has been pretty interesting support here and resistance when we got underneath it in October. So just like on the hourly, you know, those hourly moving averages, the daily moving averages, they become really important. What I'd really like to see here would be a higher low and a turn back higher, maybe a inverted head and shoulders pattern. That would be a pretty nice bottoming pattern if we are done with our pullback here. This kind of also, let's look at fib levels to see how bottom here. I'd really like this to be something like a 786 fib, which would be a pretty, yeah, it's not so clear, is it? I'm going to go with the moving averages and say, unfortunately, until we can take out this swing high and this daily 50 moving average, we need to see a bigger pullback for this to become a bottom. If we look at it on the 4-hour, really, really tough support and resistance here and a target. So if we make a higher low, this is going to be our target at 0.077. And because we've got this bullish cross of the 4-hour moving out, I would like to see, yeah, a higher low and a turn back higher here for a base in smoking fish. Not quite a buy yet. Let's see if we can set up a base here in this one. Short term, if we look at our hourly moving averages, we've just lost these hourly here. So back to this hourly 200 is likely where we go and look back for some support. That would probably be sort of 50% of this rally that we've had. It's been a really nice rally, but got a little bit lower to go, maybe. Now, actually, now I've drawn this, we are bouncing potentially from a 50%, which means we can apply the 50% rule the other way. We can say, you know, if we break out from this consolidation tightening up pattern, or if we trade back above this 50, we're probably going on our way up again. So that would be 0.067. And above 0.067, where would our first target be? This really big, tough resistance level, retest to the highs, and then a breakout from that, we're going on our way higher. But, you know, the best head and shoulders patterns have kind of equal or similar shoulders. So if we do that here, that says we need to actually spend a day or two building a bit of a base here if we're going to do that in smoking chicken fish. Okay, good luck. Let me know if there's anything good you're looking at that you would like me to